Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Concrete Conversations. I'm your host, Anish Khadia. I run Itilite, a modern travel booking, expense reimbursement, and payment solution for construction companies. If you're on the web, then there are a few keywords that you must have seen: digitization, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and its various other forms. In 2024, digitization isn't just a keyword or a buzzword for the construction industry. It is a fundamental shift in how things are done in companies. With digitization, processes are changing, becoming more efficient and sustainable. From advanced software to cutting edge technologies like building information modeling, drones, IoT sensors, every aspect of the construction life cycle is being changed. In today's conversation, I will be diving into how digitization is influencing finance processes in construction. My guest for today is Rishi Srivastava, the CEO and founder of Beiing Human, a game-changing software to streamline the accounts payable process in construction. Rishi, thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
Why don't we get started first with, tell our audience about you and Beiing Human.
My name is Rishi. Before Beiing Human, I was working as an AI engineer at Bank of America. There we realized that the prevalence of OCR versus document AI, and the main thing we figured out is that the AI adoption in old industries like construction was quite far behind. Through that knowledge and the expertise I had, we decided to start Beiing Human. So we are focusing on construction industry because it's usually behind in digital technology adoption, and there's a lot of labor costs that can be saved through a technology like ours. You're mute.
Got it. That's great to know, Shi. You've spoken quite a bit about Beiing Human, but before you were, tell us more about you and your own journey as a professional and as a founder.
I went to a school in India, IIT, where Anish and I shared some time together, and that's how we became good friends. After that, I came to US, did my PhD. It was in stochastic modeling. I did 10 years in corporate America. Eventually I got bored. Like most founders, there has to be some challenge. Some amount of risk and some amount of big problems. So like Anish, I'm also in the same bucket. No, same boat. Solving something tough and in the process enjoying it. Right? Professionally, I feel this journey of building something that never existed, like startup, is just life-changing experience, and I am fortunate that God has given me this opportunity.
Got it. Fascinating. Not many people, make a switch from being an AI engineer to an AI entrepreneur. Right? You are in the accounts payable space, Rishi. I'm sure you're speaking to several finance leaders regularly. Do you think construction CFOs are excited about digitization?
They definitely are. There's some constraints that they're under, which is uh, changes in the operating processes and the workforce involvement in some of those changes. So, uh, labor cost remains a major factor in construction. Also, there's problems in attracting qualified and good people in construction industry, and that leads them, especially finance leaders, to start thinking how can they make this industry more exciting, you know. And CFOs, they realize that, like, in the 21st century, new digital technology adoption, the theme of this webinar, is quite important. And we're seeing a lot of interest, uh, even though there is some adoption challenges.
You speak of adoption challenges, right? But before I deep dive into that, when it comes to today's construction CFO, right? Do they have a priority order of processes that they're looking to digitize?
Uh, Generally, yes. So the processes, the back office processes which are most prone to human error and most time consuming and the least value add, they are top of the line. You know, like some of the things that you guys are targeting, like travel and expense, they're also on the similar sort of bucket. And the labor part of accounts payable, which we are solving, they're also in the same sort of league.
Got it. So if I hear you correctly, you're saying they are looking to digitize their back office processes first, processes where human error is more likely. Would payments be one of those processes? Because construction is a low margin business and a business that is heavy on petty payments, right? Or small value payments.
So payments digitization, they definitely want to do that. There's some aspect of cash flow and float that is involved in making that kind of decision. Even though checks seem quite inefficient, in our conversation, we found that sometimes CFOs prefer checks over ACH because it gives them extra days of cash in their bank account, right? So you have to think in from the perspective of a leader of an organization, and you see that the payments digitization, there's some areas where a normal business, which is like a high margin business, operates differently compared to a construction which is usually low margin and tight cash flow business.
Got it. So working capital management is an important area. And what I hear from you is they probably are not looking to digitize there because it may mean more working capital needs. Tell us a little bit more about what's driving CFOs to look at digitization of accounts payable.
So the people we've talked to, it's mainly the nature of non-value add work in accounts payable. A lot of time, these accounts payable clerks are spending manually keying in information from various documents like invoices. And it's really a no value add work for a human. And mm, that's the top reason that the CFO is choosing and in construction is choosing an accounts payable automation right now.
Let me ask you a controversial question. Why not outsource to someone sitting out of India or Philippines? And why look to digitize this? Do you think digitization is more efficient than even outsourcing?
So that's a great question. One thing is, even if you outsource these work to another country, the human dependence is still there, right? If you let's say, I mean, we've seen that, especially in the smaller businesses, let's say 100 million to $500 million revenue, those businesses, like running an outsourced operation in another country is a huge challenge too, right? Time zones and languages, right? All that comes into play. And then you also are uh, thinking of somebody else sitting in another country, manage looking at your secretive financial information, you know. So all that comes into play. So that's the reason we have not seen a lot of interest in people outsourcing the the AP work to another country, but there are some instances where people are actually doing it. So we've seen maybe like 5% of the time people are actually have outsourced this work to another country like India or Philippines.
Got it. The more I think about it, the more parallels I find between accounts payable and and what we at Itlight are doing. Travel bookings is an important support process for most construction companies, particularly those that have crews traveling across the United States. Right? And, we were speaking recently to a company that's in sports construction or in construction of sports stadiums. Right? They have specialist crews that do 3 week stints in different states and cities. Now, historically, this was a process that was fully manual. So there would be a set of executive assistants or travel arrangers who would sit and book this by interacting over email and phone with a travel agent. Today, I find CFOs being very interested in digitizing this process. Right. And I asked you about the order in which processes get digitized. Just to share with our audience, the typical cycle of digitization that I have seen personally across industries. The first process to always get digitized is the accounting process. So companies almost always want to make sure their books are clean and are maintained digitally. So adoption of accounting systems and platforms was the first wave. Then comes the next wave where all types of reimbursements are digitized. So these could be reimbursements to vendors or reimbursements to employees. That's where Rishi's solution plugs in. Accounts payable automation is essentially a way to make payments to your vendor partners easier. Then comes the next wave where the ordinary process that affects an employee in the company starts to get digitized. This is where travel booking and expense reimbursements lie, especially travel bookings. Right now, our experience working with construction companies across the states is CFOs are already at level 3 of digitization, which is they are actively looking to digitize a process like travel. Now, there are a variety of viewpoints, Rishi, around digitization. Right? CFOs are pro digitization, like you said. But I also know you mentioned that the teams below, the -1 and -2 level teams, are not so supportive of digitization. Right? If there is resistance there, where is that resistance coming from?
Change is hard, right? I mean, these people who are -1 and -2, they've been doing things in a certain way for years, in some cases 10, 20 years, right? They've been working with these processes and systems, and the new wave of digitization that your company and we bring, I mean, in some cases, it's also uh, terrifying for some of these -1 and -2 people, right? There's job security concerns. Uh, yeah, and in my view, I mean, it's just it takes a while for construction industry to come on board, but once we come on board, we just ramp it up. So earlier, the initial phase of adoption is always been slow. We've seen here with companies like Procode, they stuck around for 20 years before this they actually picked up, So I hope you and I can stick around long enough to fight this.
Well, I for one don't think we have, we have to wait for very long, right? Again, I'll use our own example. So the users of a platform like ours in construction are travel arrangers. These are executive assistants or folks hired specifically to book travel for crews, for executives, etc. Now, we've seen a lot of love and adoption from folks like this, primarily because it makes their life easier. Right? Did we face an initial hiccup or two? Absolutely, yes. But once people got around that hiccup or got over that hiccup, we've seen them realize two things. One, going digital helps them do something in 5 minutes that was taking them 30 minutes to do earlier. And that time saved is precious. Second, they also realize that this creates much lower disruption in their lives. Right? So that typical fear of change, that this will take my job away, it actually doesn't. It actually makes your work more efficient and it helps you deliver more value to your leadership. Right now, that's a 100 feet view from the world of travel. As you work with accounting managers, right? Do you see them become supportive of digitization as they keep working with you or similar solutions?
Yes, it kind of actually also depends on the mm, the specific people we are talking to. Some people are really into digitization and they're really into working with us. For others, we've seen instances where they have not been. So I've, as I alluded earlier, and I believe is like the wave of adoption, at least in the in technology like ours, and maybe even yours. It's like you have maybe initially a little bit slow adoption, but it picks up. You know, this is how, and you have to be willing to fight it out while the adoption is slow, and we've been doing it, and frankly, this journey is just rewarding. I'm sure it has been rewarding for you as you mentioned all those hiccups.
Absolutely. Now, changing tracks a little bit, Rishi. You're an AI engineer yourself. There's a lot of buzz around AI of late, with chat GPTs and Geminis of the world taking center stage. When it comes to the construction CFO, is this something that is coming up often in your conversations? How are CFOs thinking about AI? Are they on board the AI wave or are they lost?
AI is a lot in conversations, and you know, mm, ChatGPT was launched a year and a half ago, and everyone's talking that's going to do so much. It's not percolated that much, right? I mean, at least in our industry, construction, I mean, the conversation chatbots, building all those. I mean, the it turns out that the companies are not as big for them to go and adopt something like ChatGPT and solve a problem in a big scale. And in my personal belief, I've been an AI engineer, and the language models are tough. And you're building a good chatbot, contextually aware, and who talks like human. We're at least, in my view, 5 years away from it, maybe more. Regardless of all the hype on ChatGPT, you one question and one answer is a different thing. And when you start throwing the context around, what did you think about the three sentences ago, what I said, right? And like a human, I mean, there's also the aspect of like physical world that we live in. There's just so much stuff that these language models are missing. So this is where we get confused. It's just opportunity for language models. Maybe it's not right now, but maybe it's going to be there in 5 years. Maybe there's going to be some physical understanding coming into these models. But there's other type of models that we use, like a simple document AI model, which is just extracting information in template agnostic manner. Those sort of models, they're now ready, right? I mean, to do a lot of great things with. So we have to uh, we have to know that CFOs are actually confused about this AI, and personally, you and I as professionals and people who are running uh, companies who use AI, it's our responsibility to educate them on the right sort of AI for their businesses.
Excellent. Now you're bringing out the aspect of AI that I love to talk about the most. I think where AI is today, it is one mega theme in most people's minds. But for CFOs or any business leader to leverage AI, they have to think about it, in my view, differently. They have to understand that there are different types of AI, right? There are large language models, LLMs, right? And Rishi, what you called as, document AI. So question back at you, what are the different types of AI that's around, and what's the AI that's relevant for a CFO today?
So if we think about major type of AIs, most of the time they are doing some sort of a conversion, right? So image to text, that's the one type of AI. Text to video, video to text, video to image, right? Like what we are doing, unstructured to structured document AI that we talk about. Then the generative AI, large language model, which is like a prompt to a response. So there's uh, all these various type of AIs, and in my view, there's only few of them are very useful right now for CFOs, and like the document AI is definitely one of them. But if you think about, actually, let's just think about the construction industry in general. I feel like the AI which understands the images and does meaningful thing, like if there's a safety issue that's about to happen in the on the site, this visual AI is recognizing and it's giving the monitoring. That's a very useful problem, right? And if you can solve something like that, right, instead of having a chatbot which just doesn't understand most of the time what you're saying, right? So I can think of two useful cases, but maybe you can tell us something more on the use cases that you see in your mind.
So I'm with you, right? I like to think of it more as machine learning than AI, right? And here is another buzzword for our audience. But overall, today we live in a data-rich world. Pretty much every action that happens in the world is recorded in some shape or form. In a travel case, for example, you have crews that travel to a particular city. Now, it isn't just crews for that construction company who travel to a particular city, but you have other construction companies traveling into that city as well, and other folks from construction. So, what we do as a platform is we gather which hotels do people stay in, right? We also gather how travelers and crews are rating a particular hotel. So our algorithms then incorporate that knowledge collected over many, many thousands of transactions and then start customizing results or personalizing results for a person searching for a hotel in that location. So it's a very different use of modern technology, but it's essentially harnessing data that's in the system to come up with smarter choices. Right now, is that strictly AI? Probably not. It's just better data processing. But that's essentially how we are leveraging some of the modern technologies.
Yeah, I mean, within your use case, seems like you're doing what you need to be doing, with right, fully utilizing the data and making right predictions and helping the users.
And I can tell you another part we are doing, which is leveraging the image to text AI suite. So when users file for reimbursements, right? When you read an image today, image processing is at a level where every single thing on a receipt gets read. But the intelligence of the algorithm is in figuring out what specific information to pick up and place in a particular field. I'm sure your document AI in AP automation also is trying to solve the same problem, right? That's a very interesting learning curve that's established over scanning of thousands of receipts or thousands of invoices for that matter.
That's right. Yeah, we're also doing something very similar. Yeah.
Okay, this has been a super interesting conversation. We've touched upon several themes in this conversation. Rishi, if you want to leave a mantra, right, or your top three mantras for anyone listening into our podcast today, what would those be?
Uh, your time is the most precious asset, and figuring out the technologies that can help you solve and save for your time, you always need to consider them, whether it's Etylite, whether it's us, or whether it's somebody else, right? And I think I'm not gonna go to three. I'm just gonna do just one. You know, yeah.
Okay, so then there it is, our audience. Efficiency and productivity is the most important thing when it comes to a company of today. And modern technologies can certainly help accelerate that efficiency journey. Right? I think the message from Rishi and I is clear. Don't get overwhelmed by modern technologies. Understand them, figure out where you are in your journey, and choose the technology that helps you the best. If we go out on a limb, our view is, large language models aren't yet meant for construction companies. Instead, there are a lot of more evolved technologies like big data processing, like document AI, that can help make things much better at your company. So with that, we come to the end of this podcast. We hope we've at least piqued your interest in AI and digitization. Tune in again to our next podcast and another look under the hood of the construction industry. Thank you. Have a good evening.